Following a long-standing tiff between Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and the military over the appointment of the country's new ISI chief, the Prime Minister has finally bowed down to the military. In the latest, Lieutenant General Nadeem Anjum will be the new ISI chief. Anjum had been appointed as the new spy master by the Pakistan Army Chief General Bajwa.
In fact, we intend to launch a new program and initiatives to enhance our cooperation across the range of issues, totaling more than $100 million.
American President Biden has announced $102 million for the US-ASEAN partnership, reflecting his administration's commitment to ASEAN's central role in the US's vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Iranian authorities say capital Tehran is suffering its worst drought in half a century, with a 97% drop in monthly rainfall compared to last year. Israel is holding its largest and most advanced air exercise ever, joined by 7 countries including India, France, the United States, Germany and the United Arab Emirates. The exercise named Blue Flag is underway in Israel's Negev desert. The United States sets new vaccine rules for most foreign national air travelers as air travel to the country is set to reopen, lifting severe travel restrictions on China, India and much of Europe effective from the 8th of November. Days before Russia goes into a 7-day period of extended holiday, Russia reports over 1,100 COVID deaths, with capital Moscow planning tougher COVID restrictions to curb the surge in new cases and fatalities. A powerful tornado wreaked havoc across the U.S. state of Illinois, damaging buildings and toppling power poles. Emergency crews have been called in to carry out the cleanup work. South African wicket-keeper Quinton de Kock is at loggerheads with the country's cricket board after refusing a directive to compulsorily take a knee before matches. De Kock made himself unavailable for the match against West Indies in the T20 World Cup today, that the Proteas won by 8 wickets. Cricket South Africa has sought a report from the team management before taking a decision on de Kock's continuation in the tournament. Boston Celtics center Enes Kanter has continued to target China over alleged human rights abuses. On Monday night, the Turkish NBA player unveiled the latest in a series of custom shoes, carrying the message "Stop Modern Slaves." It was directed at sportswear giants Nike for what he called their silence on China's policies and allegations of using forced Uyghur labor in their Chinese factories.
This month, Hindus were attacked in Bangladesh. 6 people died, temples were vandalized, puja pandals were destroyed. The world is holding a mob of bigots responsible for this riot. And there's no doubt they are responsible, they're guilty. But there's another culprit that must also be held accountable. And that's Facebook. That's where the riot began. Facebook allowed a provocative post to spread. It featured a copy of the Quran. The Quran was placed at the knee of a Hindu deity. The post was deliberate. It was supposed to incite a mob, and that's exactly what it did. This post went viral. It was allowed to spread. And this has become a template in incidents of violence across the world. It doesn't matter where it's happening. Bangladesh, Myanmar, India, America. Facebook almost always has a role to play in cases like these. It fuels the fire. The internet was supposed to promote democracy. But Facebook has weaponized the internet, so much so that it is being used to attack democracies. How did things come to such a pass? Well, we have some insider accounts to explain what happened. A whistleblower is exposing Facebook. This week, several news organizations have published thousands of internal documents from Facebook. They're being called the Facebook Papers. And these papers expose the rot within Facebook. They show how Facebook allows fake news to spread, how it enables human trafficking, how it helps people incite violence. On Gravitas tonight, we'll show you the true face of Facebook. We begin with the most damning revelations, and these are about India. In February 2019, a Facebook researcher opened a new user account. They wanted to understand how the platform behaves for someone who is new, and the test was very simple. They followed everything the Facebook algorithm recommended. So if Facebook recommended a page, they liked it. If it recommended a group, they joined it. If it suggested a video, they watched it. The result was this. The recommendations were filled with hate speech, misinformation, and celebration of violence. That's what Facebook was encouraging people to do. Allow me to tell you what the researcher wrote at the time. Following this test user's news feed, I have seen more images of dead people in the past 3 weeks than I have seen in my entire life total. And this comment was part of an internal Facebook report. So Facebook knew that its platform spreads hate. In fact, just before the Delhi riots in 2019, inflammatory content on Facebook spiked by 300%. The company knew about this too. They knew this kind of post was spreading. 300% increase. What did Facebook do about it? It chose to hide all of this. Imagine what a country's security agencies could do with information like this. It's a clear red flag. It should have set alarm bells ringing. Security agencies could have mobilized in advance. They could have deployed forces to maintain communal harmony, to prevent a riot, but Facebook chose to remain silent. And with this decision, Facebook put lives at risk. This was in 2019. We are hearing about it only now because of Frances Hogan, the Facebook whistleblower. She is the one who made these papers public. According to her, Facebook is not just hiding the truth, it is also deceiving the world when it comes to hate speech. In public, Facebook claims to remove more than 90% of hate speech from its platform, 90%. In reality, she says, Facebook takes down less than 5% of hate speech. This whistleblower believes that Facebook is pushing anger and hate.
I've seen lots of research that says that kind of ranking, engagement-based ranking, prioritizes polarizing, extreme, divisive content. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. It pushes you to the extremes, and it fans hate, right? Anger and hate is the easiest way to grow on Facebook.
Anger and hate are given priority on Facebook, she says. The algorithm is designed that way. Since 2017, posts with an angry emoji were ranked higher than a like. What's the proportion like? 5-1. The angry emoji is 5 times more valuable than a like on Facebook. And it isn't just hate speech. Facebook also allowed human trafficking on its platform. They had an internal report about it back in September 2019. This is what it said. From recruitment to facilitation and exploitation, Facebook allows traffickers to do everything. And this is happening across Facebook services. Recently, a media organization found that Instagram accounts of some traffickers were still active. They were offering domestic workers for sale. Can Facebook stop it? Yes, it can. So why isn't Facebook stopping human trafficking on its platforms? Because it involves money. And Facebook does not want to spend money to keep its users safe. It only wants to use your data to make more money.
I think there is a view inside the company that safety is a cost center. It's not a growth center, which I think is very short term in thinking. Because Facebook's own research has shown that when people have worse integrity experiences on the site, they are less likely to retain.
Safety means spending money. It hurts the bottom line, so Facebook won't do it, even when lives are at stake. Look at how the company behaved in Ethiopia. Facebook knew it is being used to incite violence in Ethiopia. It knew that armed groups are using Facebook to target ethnic minorities. Facebook detected the accounts that were inciting violence. It managed to close some of them. But it failed to close many others. How did that happen? Again, money. Facebook did not hire enough people and deploy enough tools to handle the flood of content. Haugen believes Facebook's algorithms actually fanned the violence in Ethiopia rather than stopping it. So Facebook allows fake news to spread, It is causing riots and violence. It is spreading hate. It is making people angry. In any other company, such damaging allegations would make heads roll. So much bad press would put the future of the entire company at stake. But Facebook is bigger than all of this. If you are Facebook, you don't just weather the storm, you make money off it. As all of this evidence came out, guess what happened to Facebook shares? They went up. The company is still making exponential profits. In the third quarter of this financial year, Facebook made $29 billion in revenue. That's 35% more compared to last year. More users are joining Facebook platforms. The company's daily active users have increased to almost 3 billion. 3 billion daily active users. Almost half the world's population is on Facebook every day. What explains this? Facebook is in the middle of a major scandal, but it's still making money hand over fist. And there's a reason for that. Facebook as a company faces no implications for these serious lapses because they hardly affect the company's bottom line. In 2019, Facebook was fined $5 billion for privacy violations by the American regulators. $5 billion. This was the largest penalty imposed on a tech company ever. But for Facebook, this fine was like a speeding ticket. As of today, Facebook is worth almost $1 trillion. What's $5 billion for $1 trillion company? It's peanuts. So if world leaders are serious about taking on big tech, they must hit their profits. Platforms must be taxed for allowing hate speech and violent content to thrive. And until that happens, companies like Facebook will continue to profit from hate. Now, they say staging a coup is easy. Making it stick, well, that's the hard part. There are protests, civilian pushbacks, international pressure. In the Sudan, the military usurpers are facing all of this. The question is, will it be enough to reverse the military coup? On Monday, the Sudan's prime minister and his cabinet were arrested. The military announced that they were in charge now. What happened next probably surprised them. The Sudanese had tested freedom in the last 2 years. Democracy was just around the corner, and they were not willing to give up. Thousands of protesters took to the streets. They all had the same message: no to military rule, and the revolution will go on. How did the military respond? Exactly the way you would expect them to. All roads leading to the capital, Khartoum, were shut. Internet was cut off. It was the first crackdown under the new junta, and it was brutal. The soldiers fired live rounds at the protesters. At least 7 people have been killed so far. More than 140 have been injured. Despite this violence, the protesters are standing firm. They know how this story goes, and they've seen it before. In 1989, military officer Omar al-Bashir ousted the Sudan's prime minister. That same day, al-Bashir declared himself head of state, prime minister, defense minister, army commander, all rolled into one. He would go on to rule until 2019. It was 30 years of hell for the Sudanese. The regime supported radical Islamists, the economy was in the dumps, and the Sudan was on every international blacklist. These protesters are trying to prevent a repeat. The question is, will they succeed? A lot depends on the international community. Most of the Western powers have condemned the coup. That's the first thing they do. The US has suspended aid worth $700 million. The same could happen with IMF loans, International Monetary Fund. Basically, this is a question of survival for the Sudan. Without foreign aid, this military cannot rule. They need the money. And that is the international community's leverage. This coup may or may not stick. It's too early to say, but there is one undeniable fact here. The Sudan's military has a culture of coups. They have an insatiable appetite for power. We saw it last month as well. There was an attempted coup by one section of the military, but they couldn't make it stick. So they tried again, and this time with greater force. The army is just trying hard to justify their actions. They're blaming politicians. They're saying it's not a coup, it's basically a measure to correct the path of Sudan's transition. Listen to this.
There were people talking about racism that was driving this country to reach the civil war that would have led to the fragmentation of this country, stabbing its unity, its consistence, and its society. These threats were in front of us, and we saw it broadcasted to all the people, and everybody was talking about it. These issues have a direct impact on the national security and on the armed forces.
Nobody is buying what the army is saying. This is a power grab, plain and simple. The Sudan Sovereign Council was to have a rotating chair, a military leader for 21 months, a civilian leader for 18 months. At the end of this period, in 2023, there would be elections. That was the plan. Except the army had no intention of sticking to it. The civilian leader was to take over next month in November. And on cue, the army staged a coup. Is this the end of the Sudan's democratic experiment? The army says it isn't. They're still promising to hold elections in 2023, but 2 years is a long time. And considering the Sudanese army's track record, this promise does not count for much. Plus, the generals have some powerful friends in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE. If the junta can secure their support, they don't need elections. It's truly a sad state of affairs because we don't hear about the Sudan very often. And when we do, it's never good news. This is a country with around 45 million people. Their median age is 19 years, so it's a very young population. The Sudan has reserves of natural gas, gold, silver, zinc and iron. They have everything they need to succeed, except a functioning government. And this is bad news for the whole continent, all of Africa. The Sudan straddles 3 volatile regions: North Africa, the Horn of Africa and the Sahel. This is fertile land for Islamists, infectious diseases, poverty and political instability. A democratic government in the Sudan is key to stability in Africa, so the world community must do everything to reverse this coup. If not, rogue elements will be emboldened. We've seen so many coups this year in Myanmar, in Mali, and in all of these cases, the world community was a spectator. Big statements, but nothing more. And this is a dangerous trend. World bodies must convince countries that democracy is non-negotiable. Civilian rule is the norm. Military takeovers are aberrations that must be corrected. Now, on this show, we have consistently made a point. Sexual assault is a global problem, not a third world problem. It must be dealt with strongly and decisively everywhere in the world. The first step to solving a problem is recognizing it. But the moment you talk of rape culture, the West wastes no time in pointing the finger towards India. In 2018, for example, the BBC declared that India's rape culture was, quote-unquote, shows no signs of abating. The next year, The Guardian announced that India's rape culture is growing. Growing beneath such headlines is a crisis that much of the world tends to gloss over. I'm talking about rape and the culture of silence in the West. Not too long ago, we told you about the rape culture in British schools, how girls were bullied into sharing intimate pictures, how they were groped, molested, sent explicit photos by male classmates. But most of these girls never spoke out because they were too ashamed to do so, or they were encouraged to be silent. Now, something similar is happening in the United Kingdom's military. And tonight we'll tell you about the toxic, sexualized and male-dominated culture in the UK's armed forces, and how most of these stories are drowning in the culture of silence. In March 2020, a Lieutenant Colonel named Diane Allen stepped down over alleged discrimination. She spoke about how a senior male officer had tried to force himself on her. She spoke to a British publication. This is what she said. I'm quoting from what she said. This chap had been quite persistent in the bar. I made my excuses. He followed me. He tried to physically block me from going into my room. I hit him with my elbow on the side of his head and went into the room while he was on the ground. He disappeared. I never reported it. This is just one story. The British Army has more than 112,000 regular and reserve soldiers. 16,500 of them are women. They make up around 11% of all staff. They also serve in combat roles. Women have been serving in the British military for over 100 years. The military maintains a strategy of no defense for abuse. Now, normally this would read as something good, except that it's not. Women in the British Army are battling emotional bullying, sexual harassment, physical assault, rape, gang rape, and casual sexism. A study published by BMJ Military Health Journal collected data from 750 women. They were all veterans, most of them above the age of 61. More than 22% of them said that they were sexually harassed. More than 5% sexually assaulted. More than 22% said that they were emotionally bullied. 3.3% said they had been physically assaulted. This abuse and harassment has scarred them. Women were found to be fatigued, in pain, at risk of alcohol difficulties. Those who were emotionally bullied suffered from anxiety, depression, and loneliness. Did they report the abuse? Well, most of them did not. Why? The study said women were afraid of the consequences, just like the young girls in schools were. In July, a British parliamentary report called out the country's military. It said the military had failed to protect its women. The report featured evidence of gang rape, contests for quote-unquote bagging the woman. The report said it had collected data from 4,106 women, both veterans and current personnel. 62% of these women had either been at the receiving end of unacceptable behavior or had been witness to it. Women spoke of gang rape, sex in exchange of promotion. They said contests were held to bag women, both on camp and on ships. Women were also bullied for refusing sexual advances. They had to work with their rapists. Some women said overseas war zones were safer for them than the military accommodation. Let me repeat this. Overseas war zones were safer for women than their own military accommodation. Again, women did not complain about this. Well, those who did rated their experience as extremely poor. Reports talk about military seniors brushing cases of abuse under the carpet. Take a look at data from the UK government. Between 2015 and 2020, the average conviction for rape in regular courts is around 34%. In military courts, it is 16%, almost half. In 2019, for example, the military courts heard 57 cases of sexual assault. Only 17 were convicted. There were 15 rape cases. Again, only 3 resulted in conviction. These numbers tell a story, the story of rape culture in Britain. A recent survey conducted by UN Women found that 97% of women aged 18 to 24 in the UK had faced sexual harassment. This culture has penetrated schools and army camps, and the parliament knows about it. Parliamentary reports say women have lost faith in the complaint system. The military also knows about it. But what are they doing about any of this? How can a country trust an army to protect them when it can't protect its own women personnel? How is a country supposed to trust lawmakers who are sitting on such appalling data and not really doing much about it? A woman soldier's biggest enemy today is her own camp, within her own ranks. Let's talk about climate change. It's a common enemy for the world. Combating it has become more pressing than ever. Next month, there's an opportunity to devise a plan. The COP26 is taking place in Glasgow. Leaders of more than 100 countries will gather under one roof. They will discuss ways to tackle climate change. But a few big names are missing. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Jair Bolsonaro, they will not be attending. These are leaders of countries considered to be the biggest polluters. Their absence has raised doubts on how much COP26 will be able to achieve. Has this year's conference failed even before it began? Our next report explores.
This November, the United Kingdom is hosting a climate extravaganza. A 26-year-old annual event with a rather curious name. COP26, the Conference of Parties headed for its 26th round. This yearly conference is held under the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It sees the participation of world leaders, diplomats, business executives and activists. This year they will gather in Glasgow, Scotland, to make new commitments on saving the planet. Who will attend? US President Joe Biden, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the leaders of Canada, France, Israel, South Korea, Australia, and 100 other countries. But a few big names will be missing, like Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. They have all confirmed that they aren't coming. Then we have some leaders who are yet to confirm their presence. Mexico's Andrés Manuel López Obrador, South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Why are leaders skipping the meet? They blame the rising Wuhan virus cases, both in the UK and their respective countries. But there is more to it, their poor record on climate change. These are all leaders of countries with significant greenhouse emissions and fossil fuel production. Their absence shows climate change is not their priority. It also casts doubt on how much COP26 will really achieve. The leader of the host nation fears that it might even fail.
It's going to be very, very tough, this summit. And I'm very worried because it might go wrong. And we might not get the agreements that we need. And it's touch and go. It's very, very difficult.
These fears are not unfounded. The biggest emitters are giving the conference a miss. Their absence raises questions on the gathering's relevance. It also makes promises on global unity on climate sound futile. As it is, those promises haven't yielded much. There have been 25 such conferences since 1995. During this period, over 894 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide has been emitted. That is about 37% of all greenhouse pollution in human history. These figures put COP26 at a disadvantage right from the start. To compound the problem, there are deep divisions on who should be held responsible. The responsibility is not even shared. The blame is largely put on developing nations. Countries like India, China, Brazil, and Indonesia are portrayed as wreckers of negotiation, forced into pledges at the cost of their growth. As the US, the UK, France, and Canada gloat over their achievements and set out unattainable targets for others, these divisions have frequently shaped the talks. This time, they're playing out even before the talks have begun. This has led to fears that this year's COP could turn out a flop. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Among those missing the COP26 is Chinese President Xi Jinping. He has a lot on his plate, of course. Expansionism is a full-time job. Plus, the homegrown virus refuses to go away. Lanzhou city has been put under strict lockdown in China, a city of 4 million people with rising Wuhan virus cases. Then we have a debt bomb exploding, one company at a time. Evergrande, like we told you, was just the beginning. Another company has defaulted on its loans today. It is called Modern Land China. This company is based in Beijing. It builds energy-saving homes. Modern Land was supposed to pay back $250 million today. It failed. The company has neither paid the principal nor the interest. Modern Land is not as big as Evergrande, but it is showing similar symptoms of distress. Reports say Modern Land tried everything to avoid a default. It attempted disinvestment. It tried borrowing from other sources. It sought strategic investment. Nothing has worked. So Modern Land becomes the latest company to enter the list of defaulters. The crisis has become so big now that even China's state mouthpieces cannot brush it under the carpet anymore. The Global Times published this piece today, the one that you see on your screen. It says a couple of more Chinese real estate developers could default next. So they say that it is growing. Now, had the defaults been limited to real estate, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But the Chinese economy is witnessing defaults across the board, not just the property market. Look at this chart. It lists China's offshore bond defaults since last year. What does that mean, offshore bond defaults? Offshore means money owed to creditors outside China. And default, of course, is not being able to pay back those loans. Since 2018, these defaults have almost tripled. In 2018, Chinese borrowers defaulted on more than $3 billion worth of offshore bonds. $3 billion. 3 years later, these defaults have jumped to almost $9 billion. Real estate companies account for just 1/3 of this debt. The rest belongs to other sectors. And even those numbers do not describe the full extent of China's crisis. Investment bank Goldman Sachs has uncovered another ticking time bomb in the Chinese economy. It is not a private company. It is the Chinese government itself. It's the biggest problem. Local governments in China owe more than $8 trillion. You heard that right. I will repeat that figure. $8 trillion. This is way bigger than Evergrande. This debt pile is around 52% of China's GDP, double the size of a country like Germany. $8 trillion. This money financed China's infrastructure boom. Cities raced to build skyscrapers, 6-lane highways, international airports, hotels, stadiums, shopping districts, amusement parks. China built all of them. Local governments borrowed heavily for all these projects. Even Beijing may not know about the true extent of this debt because China does not have an official account of it. It's not in the books. Beijing does not keep a record of the hidden borrowings by local governments. And there's a reason for that. Technically, this borrowing is against the law, but the Communist Party has chosen to look the other way, since it was a tool to finance its boom. So they allow these hidden borrowings. Now, these local governments could be set up for failure. Back in the month of May, Beijing issued a new order. It said that there will be no bailouts for local governments. So either these debts would fail or they'll be restructured. Foreign investors are already losing faith in Chinese bonds. Japan's government pension fund will not include the yuan-dominated Chinese sovereign debt in its portfolio. And this is the world's largest government pension fund we are talking about. It's worth almost $2 trillion. And they say they do not trust bonds issued by the Chinese government anymore. Other countries may want to pay attention. They should consider deleveraging themselves from Chinese investments. Otherwise, the Chinese debt virus could infect them too when China's financial pandemic begins. And it's a matter of when, not if anymore. Let's turn to Mozambique, where elephants are being born without tusks. This is a fascinating story of evolution. Scientists say it's because of poaching. Poaching has forced elephants to evolve, change the way they look. And this is not the only species. Human activities are forcing bears, fish, and other creatures to change their appearance, to evolve to survive in a human world. Take a look at this report.
What's a giraffe without its long legs? What's a kangaroo without its pocket? An ostrich without its neck? Or an elephant without its tusks? It is an evolved elephant, like this one. This is what elephants may look like in the future, almighty and tall, but tuskless. Courtesy, us humans. This is Mozambique. The country was torn apart by a civil war in the late 20th century. The anti-communist forces were fighting the government. The civil war lasted from 1977 to 1992. Financing it was not easy, so fighters on both sides began poaching elephants. They killed 90% of the country's jumbos, then sold the ivory to fill the war coffers. This large-scale ivory poaching led to evolution of elephants. They became tuskless. Before the war, 18.5% of female elephants in Mozambique's Gorongosa National Park were naturally tuskless. It was considered a rare genetic feature. After the war, tuskless elephants weren't rare anymore. They became the norm. At least 33% of elephants were born without tusks. How did this happen? During the war, the poachers had spared tuskless jumbos. Killing them served no purpose. So the lucky leftover elephants bred among themselves and passed on the tuskless trait. So most females today were being born without the long tusks. Is this new trait linked to the elephant's gender? At first, scientists thought as much. They later realized the tuskless trait had to do with a mutation in the X chromosome. And hence, it was fatal to male offspring. You know, because females are XX and males XY, elephants are not the first animals that we humans have forcefully altered. In Alberta, the size of horns on bighorn sheep have dropped 20%. These animals are hunted for their horns. The size of some fish have reduced too. Scientists say this could be because of fishing, because it's easier for smaller fish to pass through the fishing net and survive. In Alaska, the beasts have a unique problem. The bigger their size, the more their chance of being trophy hunted. So the Kodiak bears have declined in average size over the years. A report in livescience.com says that humans are forcing some species to change 300% faster. What kind of changes are we talking about? Changes in body size, even reproductive ability. A review of 34 studies found that harvested and hunted animals are 20% smaller in their body size than previous generations. The age in which they first reproduce has advanced by 25%. Take the Atlantic cod, for example. They are overfished on the eastern coast of Canada. Less than 2 decades ago, the Atlantic cod would begin mating at the age of 6. Now they start mating at 5. While this highlights nature's magical ability to change, the story is really about the animal kingdom struggling to survive. It is crying out loud for help. The question is, who's listening? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Have you heard about the Promised Land? It's a political lightning rod in West Asia. Every religion has its own version. The Jews believe it was the land promised to them. Promised by who? God. That's what Jews believe. In the last century, another promise was made, not by God, but by Western countries who liked playing God. They promised to carve 2 states out of Palestine, one for the Jews, one for the Arabs. And for the last 100 years, this promise has divided West Asia. Why are we talking about it now? Because it seems some countries have forgotten this promise. Let me show you what's happening in the West Bank. Diggers and cranes are rolling in. Israel is building 1,300 new settlements in the West Bank. Remember, this is not Israeli land. It was captured during the 1967 war. Palestinians claim the West Bank is part of their future state, but Israel's new government is not interested. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is opposed to the 2-state solution. He himself once headed a settler lobby. For him, it's just spare land. This construction spree will not stop here. Israel is discussing plans for 3,000 more houses in the West Bank. Now, most of the world considers these houses to be illegal. This includes Israel's own allies like the United States and the European Union. So why are they not stopping the Israeli government? That's what Palestinians are wondering.
The settlement programs that have been announced and are still being announced by Israel place the world, and especially the United States, in front of great responsibilities to confront and challenge the fait accompli that Israel imposes systematically.
The new settlements are flashpoint number 1. Flashpoint number 2 is this. Israel has designated 6 Palestinian civil society groups as terrorists. These are basically rights organizations and activists, but Israel says they are funneling money to militants. Now, both the United States and the United Nations have condemned this move. Washington says it was caught off guard. Apparently, Israel did not even inform the US about its decision. Naftali Bennett is not bending to Joe Biden's will. He recently boasted about his meeting with the US president. Bennett said that he said no to Biden 3 times on Iran, on West Bank settlements, and on a Palestinian consulate in Jerusalem. 3 no's to his closest allies. America has repeatedly pushed for a 2-state solution, but this is a more firm and hardline Israeli government. Getting concessions from Naftali Bennett will be close to impossible. So who can the Palestinians bank on? What happened to their Arab friends? In simple words, the Abraham Accords happened to them. The UAE's Air Force chief visited Israel on Monday. 2 years back, this was unthinkable. Israeli media is talking about joint drills between the UAE, Bahrain and Israel. Their common enemy? Iran. 6 Arab nations have normalized their relations with Israel. They're exchanging ambassadors, running flights, expanding tourism, basically spinning a lot of money. Where does that leave Palestine? Abandoned and helpless. Their biggest supporters are Saudi Arabia, Iran and Turkey, 3 countries who can't agree on a single thing. So it's fair to say the promise has been forgotten. Not the one made to Israel, but the promise made to Palestine. Forgotten. This two-state solution was first suggested in 1917. The United Nations endorsed it in 1947 and then again in 1974. More than 100 years later, Israel has a state, Palestine doesn't. Clearly, the world community did not keep the promise, but Palestinian leaders are also guilty here. Their politics is fractured. If a government wants to engage with Palestine, who do they talk to? The government in West Bank or the Hamas in Gaza or both? Movements succeed with clarity in vision. They succeed with stability in leadership. When Yasser Arafat died in 2004, Palestine lost both. Clarity in vision and leadership. And since then, their politics has been divided. Palestine has held just 1 legislative election since 2005, 1 election in 15 years. On the other hand, Israel has been on a lobbying spree, whether in the US or in Europe. The prime ministers are busy charming lawmakers or taking on presidents. The promise of Palestine was a collective promise made by the world. It was a fervent cause in the Muslim world. But then came money and business. The Arab world saw opportunities with Israel, and Palestine became a forgotten promise. That's all we have time for. We're wrapping the show, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks for watching.
You.
And where is he?
On the bridge, yeah. Why don't you show him your kitty cat mask? Look, come over here. Look. Show him. Oh, God love you. You be a good cat, okay? Okay? Huh? How are you, baby?
What did you want to show him?
It's scary.
Oh, the White House. You are really smart.
Go!
They want their records. They want the entire contest. 1.